Hello and welcome to this week's episode of FireDEV. So this week there's something a little different. My guest will be Farhan Hussain, which is myself, if you've been watching the podcast, aka listening to it, for the past 70 plus weeks. To be fair, this will be episode 74, I want to say. But yes, it's been over a year now, so I want to thank everyone for listening. So I wanted to record this episode because there's been a lot of layoffs in the tech and also gaming industry, and other industries as well, but especially the gaming and tech industry. And in total, tens of thousands, I mean possibly even hundreds of thousands. There's been a lot, and that's something I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about why it's happening, because it's very easy to say, oh, it's just companies being greedy, they just want to get rid of people, blah blah blah, and all that sort of stuff. It is a bit more nuanced than that. I also want to talk about how, as a person who's been affected by it, or if you know someone that's been affected by it, what you can do to help through this time, because it is, a difficult time. And yeah, so let's, dive right into it. The first thing, again, why is it happening? The thing is, if you look at the number of employees in, the tech industry, or, the companies that are laying people off, which is, I have, a cough, by the way, so, just bear with me. But if you look at the companies that are laying people off, if you take out the number of employees and the hiring numbers over the last 2-3 years, or during the COVID period, 2020 to 2022, maybe even 2023 to 2023, when the COVID period, again 2023, whether or not you consider that as COVID, it still had the remnant effects of COVID in terms of hiring and the economical effects as well. So yeah, 2020 to 2023, if you take that out, if you look at the numbers now, or early 2023, because it's really in 2023 where this sort of layer started. And if you take it out, if you look at the numbers, we're still at a higher point than we was pre-COVID for most companies. So on a long enough time scale, so let's say 10 years, if you want to zoom out a little bit, this little downturn I don't think will look that bad. I think you'll just look at just normal ebbs and flows as you get, like per month. It'll just be an overall average line that is going up. For the maths guys out there, you'll have a positive gradient. You'll have a gradient that is on an upward trend. So why does it feel so bad? And the reason, again, lies in the immense amount of people that have been hired over the last few years. That in itself is not a bad thing when it can be sustained. Not only was the rate of hiring unsustainable, clearly, because it's not like, because if it's one company or two companies, you can put it down to that particular that particular company or companies, or even industry possibly. Because let's say if it was YouTube and let's say some other video platforms, let's say Netflix for example, that were hit, then you could say, okay, it's the video platform, online streaming sector. But that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing it in all sorts of companies. You're seeing companies even shutting down. So why are they laying people off? Because it isn't just a matter of they slowed down hiring, because what happened was during COVID, there was a little downturn initially, and then when companies realized, oh, people are at home, they are consuming a lot of internet content, like streaming YouTube, streaming on Netflix, like games, obviously, they're playing a lot of games. And as a result, what ended up happening was, surprise, surprise, they ended up hiring a lot of people to accommodate the growing demand for their products and services, which is natural. And, again, it's going to come down to money, and I'm going to, touch on that as well. But yeah, obviously this podcast, this particular episode isn't going to be the longest. Probably going to be like 15 to 20 minutes, maybe 30 at a push. So I will be doing more in-depth ones, and especially if you find value from this, because this is a little different to my regular one where I'm always getting guests on and also panels, then do let me know, and I will do more like this. But yeah, the hiring increased to, if you look at the graphs again, I don't have the numbers to hand right now, but if you look at the graphs, like, it was crazy off the charts. The hiring again, it wasn't one or two companies, it was industry wide, and I bet you there was a lot of capital available that allowed them to expand. And then also, their stock prices rose as a result, and then they'll probably able to borrow more money, able to leverage down, etc., etc. And it was a vicious cycle. And it was a vicious cycle for the simple reason they hired so many people. It got to a point now where this is another thing to know. So a lot of the people that were laid off weren't just like permanent employees that had been there for 15, 20 years. That is the case. I'm not saying that isn't. But they were like contracted, people that had been there for 6 months, a year, maybe 2 years. They were brought in during this, upturn in companies. And then on top of that, they were also paid really high rates relative to what they would have got. And they were easily able to get these higher rates. And what's happened now is companies are seeing, as things are getting back to normal, some of these, or a lot of these products and services aren't being used as much. Therefore, it's not as profitable, or we've put the systems in place where we don't need the people anymore. It's more maintaining than growing and also building. So what do we do with these people? The logical business decision is to let go of them, because they, labor traditionally is the most expensive part of any business. So that's what they did. They let go of people. And obviously that's the problem is, you're not letting go of a table or like a computer where you think, okay, it's a bit old or it's not fit for purpose anymore. We don't need it. We get rid of it, whatever. It's human lives. They have families. They have, mortgages to pay. They have, car payments. And, we can have a separate debate on how stretched should an individual be, savings, etc., etc. But the reality is, it still affects you, even if you do have savings. It just affects you less. It still affects you mentally, at the very least, if not financially. So yeah, they've had to lay off a lot of people and to basically course correct. Again, the layoffs haven't been on the level where they've gone to pre-COVID numbers or less. It's more, if COVID never happened, probably where the hiring level or the employee level would be. So this is a very big problem in that, because there was a desire or a need to hire them short term, they did. They, I'm sure, never told anyone, or most companies never told anyone, that they're going to hire people. And I'm sure at the big companies, they probably have had analysts where there was like, we probably won't be able to keep these people on, for 10 years. It's unlikely. That's not what we're hiring these people for. Nobody was told that. They were just hired on on the normal basis of, you're hired, we'll renew your contract, we'll extend your your employment period here, etc., etc. Then a year passed, 2 years passed, 3 years passed, or some people just months, and then they realize, oh, I'm not going to be here for the long term, even though they may have wanted to be, and even though they may have performed to a high standard. That's also the other thing. It wasn't a matter of, okay, there were certain employees that didn't perform, and there were certain teams. Again, it's happening on the scale of tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands, across different companies, across different countries, across different continents, across different industries. So this is a lot more, it has a more systemic issue of, what it is. And again, come back down to the money thing. The companies won't ever say, oh, we're all about money. But here's a little exercise. And when has a company ever said, okay, we've made 20% less money this year, profit, or revenue, whatever figure you want to use. We made 20% less money this year, and we're happy with it. We're happy because we've either been able to, streamline our process and focus on a certain few products and also provide better, or we were happy because We've not had to overwork our employees. They've got a better work-life balance. Have you ever heard of Facebook do that? Ever heard of Google do that? Ever heard of Amazon and Microsoft and the other various the other smaller and medium companies, let alone the large, behemoths of the world? Nobody does or says that, and it's because they're all money driven. Again, that in itself is not a bad thing, but the denial of it, and which they all deny that we're not, doing it for the money. And it's like, yes, they are. At the very least, they're doing it for shareholder value, CEOs and executives, because without that shareholder value, without that, forever growing, profits. And the problem is profits, money can, revenue can only go so high before it has to collapse, or before inflation has to get to a point where, it's kind of accommodating the increase. So that is another, big problem with it. So, like, my analysis of it is this: a lot of people were hired that probably shouldn't be, or at rates that they shouldn't be. And obviously it's going to be a tough pill to swallow for people. And again, this isn't me blaming people, this is me pointing the finger at companies. Then they laid them off, a lot of time without warning, a lot of time without support to get them on the feet for something else. And they also are always, trying to increase profits. And by trying to always increase profits and, the money that the company makes, what they end up doing is they grow unnaturally, and they get to a point where they have to downsize. And that is inevitable. That's happened multiple times, and that's nothing new. And again, that's a problem. Again, it also comes back down to the money that employees are paid. I'm sure that I know employees were paid, or contractors, or what. Employees, I'm using as a general term, contracted, permanent, part-time, whatever, more than they probably would have been usually, because the money was flowing. Instead of companies saying, you know what, we're going to be a bit sensible about this. We're going to hire half of what we're probably going to hire. We're going to pay them the same that we would usually, or maybe a tad more, not as much as we would. And this will be more sustainable, and hopefully we'll figure out a plan to keep them, most of them, long term. But again, the problem with that is that only works if every company, or most companies, do that. If only 10% of the companies do it, and 90% are willing to pay you a lot more, people will go to the companies that pay a lot more. Most people will only want to work at Google because they pay well. And if they paid, I don't know, 100,000 for a job, then there was another company that paid 150, people go for the 150. It is just the reality. Yeah, if it's 101, yeah, they might choose Google because they want to be at Google for whatever reason. They want to be at one of the manga companies. They like Google, they like their products, etc., etc. They like the mission statement. Whatever it is, that's irrelevant. But if other companies are paying a lot more, they will go. So again, that's another issue, and that's a separate issue, because it only works if they're all willing to say, okay, be sensible about it. So that's my analysis of why a lot of people have been fired. So now, tips and tricks of how to, survive these times, because again, it's not a week, it's not a month. For some people, it's been months. I know people waiting like 6 months, 8 months. Okay, and they got families, they got mortgages. A bit about myself. I run my own business, but I also do a lot of contracting work, and the contracting work I run through my business pays very well. That's where majority of my income. Again, it depends on the period of time, throughout my life. But like right now, it's the majority. That's where the majority of my income gets paid. I've never spoken about this publicly, but my contract ended, my most recent contract with a company, back in October. I haven't been able to get another contract since. So I've been running on savings and the little bit of money I'm making through business. So I'm recording this episode as someone who is 100% going through this with yourself and looking for my next opportunity as well. I'm applying for like 100 plus roles every day. And you might be thinking, especially if you're in this right now, are there like 100 plus roles relevant? I'm a programmer. No, by the way, are there 100 plus for technologies that I'm proficient in? Reality, no. So I'm applying for roles that I probably wouldn't apply for before. I'm applying for roles that are totally different, technologies, and totally different sort of roles, entirely. for the simple reason, hoping one, they might be like, okay, we like the guy, this person has these other skills, these other, you know, skills in these particular technologies, and they can work with this other, what we actually want, and they're open to that. Also, it gets me a contact with some of these recruiters, because some of them have coming back and be like, okay, you don't quite have this, but let's stay in touch, and we're staying in touch to see what's available. They may end, sometimes a recruiter that's recruiting for, let's say, networking ends up getting a programming role, maybe from that client, on their desk. And they're like, oh, okay, Farhan or Bob or John, whoever, they were the programmer. I made contact with them already. I'll go through them. They have a nice CV. They just didn't quite have the networking, or they didn't have the program and they got the networking, for example. So that is one thing I would do. Another thing is obviously apply to as many as you can every single day. You want to be as quick on it as possible. Like, I'm seeing jobs that are posted, they're gone within 24 hours, or they've got so many candidates that they're not hiring anymore, and you can effectively see that's gone. Like, obviously chase it up, make sure it is gone and not still available, but it is effectively, you're unable to apply. The other thing is, on LinkedIn, connect with recruiters, find recruiters online, the recruitment companies that you use, and following people that work there. They usually post on there, I find, sometimes before they get posted on job sites. So that's a great way. Also, apply via the recruiter's website, apply via something like Read or Indeed, which is like an aggregation of aggregator, or like a search engine for jobs, and also apply via like LinkedIn as well. That's another great way. Another thing is, have a list of, if you haven't already got it, make a list of recruiters that you connect to, maybe through your past, or maybe that you could recently be talking to. Chase them up. I've got like a master list that I ring them, and if they pick up, I'll mark a date and I'll say I'll ring them back a week later. If they obviously have some more information, if they say, oh, today is Monday, on Wednesday I'm going to go and see a client, I'll chase them back on Wednesday, Thursday. If not, they say we don't have anything yet, chase them back a week later. You want to get a balance. So, definitely have that. If you don't have that, it's going to take a bit of time, but you'll be beneficial the next time you need it as well. So definitely, create that master list. The other thing is, if you haven't had a role for like 2 months and you think, oh, you might be another 2 months, you might be thinking, what do I do now? Okay, what you can do, you can really just start to utilize this time and skill up, leverage the time, improve your skills, start talking to people, maybe start a business if that's the route you want to go there. That leads me on to another thing. Utilize this time and think, okay, what I need to do is I need to have backups. I need to have a side hustle, a side business. I mean, ideally it brings up, in as much or more than, like your regular job or your contract. If it doesn't, that's fine. You'll still help, because you can, if let's say it's 50% and you only need 50% of to core live, that's, for your core expenses, that's great. Or you need 75%, but the 50% will go a long way, or you can cut it down a bit to get to that 50%. Have investments, stocks, properties, crypto. Obviously, educate yourself. Don't go blind and just start investing in companies. That's not what I'm saying. But start that journey of, okay, I'm going to find alternatives. And that is good advice in general. That's something I really do recommend. And this is something that I definitely appreciate more now with everything that is going on, especially for other people. And the other thing is, again, start reaching out to your own networks. Look on, LinkedIn is a great way. Start connecting with people, and don't get disheartened. I'll say start reading some motivational books. Maybe watch some motivational videos. Obviously, don't get into the trap of paralysis by, analysis. Don't get into that trap where you're just constantly, researching and reading books. Applying and, working and improving your skills. Also, if you like your programmer, go into Algo Expert, go into Lead Code, improve your skills. That'll help a lot. And go over stuff that you've already done. Improve your projects, make new projects, put those projects on GitHub, or if there's ArtStation, if you're an artist, or whatever it is, improve your portfolio. Keep doing that. Also, some other resources. There's Amir Satva on LinkedIn. There's Justin Williams. There's Ida Figueroa. There's like a bunch of, like, I would call them rock stars of LinkedIn. and they've talked about, some of them are recruiters, some of them aren't, but they're in like the gaming tech industry, and they talk a lot about what's happening now, but just in general. Well, especially Amir Satvat, he's compiled huge lists of, employers, and they're looking for employees, or they list for resources, amazing resources. Where when this goes live and this is posted on LinkedIn, I'll do a post with some of those resources there. So definitely check that out, and again, just stay focused, stay strong. It is gonna be difficult, this time is, for everyone, and maybe willing to take a pay cut. Because think about it. If you're earning, I'm gonna throw random numbers out, but let's say if you're earning 80,000, and you probably could get a job for 60,000. The reality is, being out of work for 3 or 6 or maybe even more months, is it worth it? No, because the money that you've not made during that time is worse than the lower amount. Also, the other thing is, just because you get it, you don't mean you have to stay there. Obviously, employers don't like this, and you don't tell employers this, but you leave. After 12 months, leave if you have to. You get better opportunities. Even if you're not the type of guy that leaves, you usually had to come in for 5-10 years, it's fine. Or if you're a contractor, go to perm. Or again, this is another one. A lot of people want to work from home, myself included. You want to go remote, go hybrid. Again, not companies aren't really asking everyone to go in fully, but they're definitely hinting at hybrid. They're heavily suggesting hybrid a lot. Do that. That will help immensely to towards this, and finding alternatives, figuring out alternatives. Maybe you need to get a part-time job in something else just to earn a bit of money. Again, don't just see that and think, oh, this is just my life now. But if you need to do it just to earn some minimal amount of money, it is better than nothing, and it'll keep you busy. Okay, so I want to wrap this podcast up here, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, let me know, and I will do more like this. I've got a few more planned, some obviously around these layouts, but just something in general that where there's topics I want to discuss. And yeah, let me know, and I'll see everyone in the next week's episode of FireDEV. Take care. Bye.